Hello there, my name's Scott. Today I'm going to be doing a review on the Olympus Hybrid Atomiser, which I received from www.vapors-shop.net. Before I start though, I must point out I did receive it free of charge for the purpose of conducting a review, but my opinion of the product remains true, honest and accurate as always. Okay, let's go straight ahead and show you what's in the box. Okay, so the Olympus Hybrid comes in a nice little presentation box. And inside the box, sitting on top, you're going to find the actual Olympus Hybrid Atomiser. And in addition, you're also going to get a bag containing 5 pieces of 400 stainless steel mesh, plus 5 pieces of 325 stainless steel mesh, 10 meters of 0.2mm Canthal wire, 3 meters of 2mm silica wick, and a bag containing some Cera filling material. Okay, so here I have the Olympus Hybrid Atomiser. And it's called a hybrid atomiser because you can set it up as a Genesis atomiser or as a silica atomiser, sort of very similar to the spheroid. Now the Olympus Hybrid has lots and lots and lots of little individual parts, and if I spend sort of too much time talking rather than sort of showing, this video could end up being exceptionally long. And I do want to sort of show you how to set up both modes. So what I'm going to do is give you a very sort of quick rundown of the like the specs of the atomiser, and then I'm just going to strip it down and just show you how to very quickly set it up as a Genesis atomiser, then strip it down and show you how to set it up in the silica mode. Okay, so it's made out of 304 grade stainless steel, uses a 510 atomiser connection. On the body you're going to find laser engraving for the company logo and a serial number. The air hole here is used in the silica mode and it's 1.2mm, and the air hole in the top cap is used for Genesis mode and again is 1.2mm. The tank in Genesis mode will hold 6 millilitres of e-liquid. In silica mode it will hold 3 millilitres of e-liquid, and on top it does come with a supplied drip tip. You can use your own drip tip if you want to, though you may have to go through your collection to try and find one that fits, because they do fit in there very, very tight. And I think out of 11 drip tips that I tried, I can only actually get 4 of my own ones to fit in there nice and or just fit in there basically. Underneath the top cap, at the moment I've got this set up as a Genesis atomiser, and it has a 3.5mm wick hole, and you have plenty of options here. So if you want to set it up as a dual coil, you can do. If you want to have a U-wick in there, again you can do as well. Okay, so that is a sort of very brief rundown of the atomiser, and what I'm going to do now is just quickly strip it down and then sort of visually show you how to set it up as a Genesis. Then I'll strip it down and show you how to set it up as a silica atomiser. Now when you get the Olympus Hybrid, it does come with lots of individual intricate looking parts, and it gets a little bit confusing trying to understand what part is used for what mode. However, as far as I'm aware, everything that you see here is what's required to set this up as a Genesis style atomiser. Well, this is what I've been using to set it up as a Genesis style atomiser, and I've not been having any sort of problems whatsoever. Right, now I'm not going to do too much talking here. I just want to crack on and sort of visually show you how to get this all assembled. Now in the box you're going to find 2 shafts, and one is longer than the other one, and you want to take the longer one and screw it into this space section. On the tank you're going to find that one end has threading and on the other end it doesn't. Take the end with the threading, slide it over the top and screw it on nice and tight. You then need to attach the atomiser deck to the top of the tank. And if you look underneath, you have this larger hole here out of the 3, and that hole is going to fit on top of the shaft and then just sort of push on into place. You're then going to take this long thin shaft, make sure you have the nut screwed onto the end of it there, and then just place it through the hole and push it all the way through. You can now secure the sort of long thin shaft by taking this larger knurled nut and simply screw it into position. And then you can add the 2 other smaller knurled nuts. And then finally you can just screw on the 510 base, and make sure you screw this on nice and tight, because it's important that this sort of nut makes a connection with the base here, otherwise you won't be able to complete the circuit. Okay, so once that's all assembled, all you need to do then is attach it to whatever device you're going to be using. Add your wick and your coil, fill the tank up with e-liquid, and then add the top cap, making sure that the air hole is lined up directly in front of the wick. And finish it off by adding your drip tip. Okay, so that is the Genesis mode, and what I'll do now is quickly show you the silica mode. Okay, so here we have all the parts that are required in order to set up the Olympus as a silica based atomizer, which is sort of very similar to the spheroid. Now again, I'm not going to sort of talk too much during this process, because I want to sort of try and keep it short and sweet, just to obviously try and keep the video down to a respectable length. And so I'm going to be again working mainly on the visuals, and if I need to say something then I will do. Okay, so before we start then, there's just a couple of little things I need to point out. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is remove this little Phillips head screw there. And the reason being is that in silica mode you're going to be using this air hole on the side, and the air flows through that hole and it comes out through this central tube, and obviously with the screw in there it's going to be blocking the airflow. So just get a Phillips head screwdriver and just remove the screw. The next thing you need to do is take this part here and just make sure that all the holes are filled up, with the exception of that little one at the top there. So in the kit you're going to get 2 of these little white plastic bungs, use those to fill up those 2 holes. Leave your sort of 2 negative terminal screws in position, and then this screw here is actually a fill hole screw, so if you are using it in the Genesis mode you can fill up your tank with juice and then put the fill hole screw in there to try and prevent a bit of leaking. So obviously just make sure all the holes are filled up, with the exception of that little top one now. Then you need to flip it over and remove this screw at the bottom, and then flip it back over again and take this little small shaft and screw that into the centre. And then once that shaft is in position, you can take the top cap and screw that onto it as well. Now the idea of that shaft is to basically eliminate the need for that little air hole there. So rather than using the air hole, air is going to come through the centre there, go up the shaft and then come out through the mouthpiece. And then once the top cap is screwed on, you can just take the drip tip and whack that in the end. For the next step, you can take this little small white sort of grommet and screw that into the hole. You then need to take this really small little sort of threaded shaft, I suppose you'd call it, and screw that into the hole here. Now I believe on the manufacturer's video he actually adds the ceramic part first and then adds these 2 pieces afterwards, but I found that it was very hard to actually screw this up with the ceramic already in place, and I find it easier to do it this way. Obviously whatever way you find easiest, that's the way you should be doing it. Okay, so all I need to do now then is basically wedge the ceramic over that central little sort of stubby part there. And this will go in at an angle. It has been sort of shaved down on either side, so it should be slightly screw width. You could then take this other little shaft, which is very similar to one that was used in the Genesis setup. Just make sure you've got the nut on the end here again. But obviously this is the shorter one, and all you need to do is insert that through the hole and push it all the way through. Then take this sort of knurled nut and screw that onto the shaft. And then take one of these little small nuts and screw one on either terminal. and then you can screw on the 510 base. For the next stage we can make up the wick and coil. So what I've done here is I've cut out a length of wick, folded it over and then wrapped around, I think it's 5 or 6 coils using some 0.28 gauge Canthil wire. And when you wrap your coils, you want to try and leave it so one end of the wire is on one side and the other end of the wire is on the opposite side. And then you just need to place the section with the coils inside the ceramic cup and take one end of the wire, wrap it underneath one terminal and the other end of the wire underneath the other terminal, and then just tighten them up. Then to remove the excess pieces of wire, you can either use a pair of cutters, but I prefer to just apply a bit of tension, give it a spin, and it should snap off nice and clean. Then at this stage, it's always a good idea just to attach it to whatever device you're going to be using, give it a test fire just to make sure everything's working okay. And then you can take a pair of scissors and just trim off the wicks, make them look a little bit neater. They don't need to be too long, but you don't want to sort of leave them too short either. And then it's always a good idea just to add a bit of e-liquid to the coils and to the wicks, just to sort of give things a helping start. And now for the finishing touches, you just need to take this sort of a cone shaped piece and screw this into the top there. And then you can cut off a piece of the Serra filling material and just start to sort of wrap that around the shaft. And you will have to sort of experiment with this. If you add too much, then basically you're going to have sort of problems wicking. If you don't add enough, then you may have problems with leaking. But literally after you've sort of done it a few times, you get an idea of how much you're going to need. Then take the tank section and make sure you're using the end without the threading, slide it over the top and push it all the way down. Now once the tank is in place, you can just use a little screwdriver just to sort of puff the filling material out a little bit, make it look a little bit neater. Make sure you haven't got any sort of big gaps there, and it should end up looking a little bit like that. Then to fill the tank up, you just need to take your bottle of e-liquid and basically just sort of saturate the filling material. And hopefully you're going to get the idea now that the wicks are going to be touching the Serra filling material, and that will then feed e-liquid down into the coil. And so to basically finish off, all you've got to do is attach the tank, just squeeze those wicks in there, screw it all the way on, and that's it, you're all ready to go and have a nice vape. Okay, so that is the Olympus hybrid. Let's go ahead, see what it vapes like. Okay, so that was the Olympus hybrid atomizer. And what I'll do now is go ahead and show in action. So I'm going to be using it on my Nemesis. The battery come off the charger probably around sort of 20 minutes ago, been having a bit of a vape. So it's probably reading around sort of 4 volts. Not too sure what the resistance of the coil is, but I'm going to guesstimate probably around, well, probably between 1 and 1.2 ohms. The tank has been originally filled up with some 18mg strength tobacco flavoured e-liquid. But I've just actually given it a little bit of a top up with some scorpion blood to sort of mix the two flavours together, even though the scorpion blood has completely overtaken the tobacco flavour now. So I'm going to be using it in the silica mode. I'm not going to be showing you it in the Genesis mode, but I will obviously give you my thoughts on the Genesis mode as well. Okay, so this is the Olympus hybrid. So as you can see, like vapour production wise, they're getting plenty of vapour out of it. And I probably would say that I tend to get a little bit more vapour production when using it in the silica mode compared to when using it in the Genesis style mode. Not too sure why that is, but it definitely just seems to be like not a massive amount of difference. You're still getting a really nice amount of vapour in the Genesis mode, but in the silica mode definitely does seem to be just that little bit more sort of vapour production. When it comes to the flavour, you know, in Genesis mode, as long as it's all set up nicely, you know, all your coils are glowing nice and evenly, then you're getting a really great flavour, is what you'd expect from a nicely sort of set up Genesis Atomiser. And in the silica mode, again, you're getting really nice amounts of flavour. And this Scorpion Blood, I only sort of really added a little, I suppose, there's probably around, or just over, or just under 3 ml of the tobacco flavoured e-liquid in there. And then I've just topped it up with probably about half a ml of Scorpion Blood, and that is literally the only thing I can actually taste at the moment. But the taste and the flavour is coming through really, really strong. You have to sort of bear in mind though that to a certain extent the amount of vapour production you're going to get will be down to your own sort of personal setup, because obviously how you've got it set up with regards to the type of resistance you set the coil to, obviously a Genesis style or the silica style type of e-liquid, etc, etc, will all sort of play a part in the amount of vapour production you're going to get. The draw, in the silica mode, it actually comes across as quite a loose draw. They're both using a 1.2mm air hole, regardless of whether it's in the silica mode or the like the Genesis mode. But in the silica mode, it definitely comes across a lot more airy. Nothing sort of, it's not overly loose, but it's definitely a looser draw compared to using it in the Genesis mode, where it's a little bit on the tighter side. But it's quite a nice draw though. I mean, I know not a lot of people have actually got them, but for anyone who's got a Mister, which is a silica-based hybrid, it's very similar vaping experience to that. You know, you've got quite a sort of loose draw in the silica mode. You're getting plenty of vapour, you're getting plenty of flavour. And you know, you probably obviously can't tell, but as you can, well, you may be able to tell, but in the silica mode, you know, I'm getting really nice wicking, not getting any sort of dry hits. I'm taking quite a few hits, sort of one after the other here, not getting any sort of dry burnt taste whatsoever. But like I said in the close-up shots, you would have to sort of experiment a little bit with the amount of Serra filling material you actually add. Because if you sort of pack it in too tightly, then it will just sort of basically trap the juice and won't allow it to wick down through the wicks onto the heating coil. If you put it in there too loose, then you will find that juice will just start to sort of drip down, and you're going to start getting little bits of leaks. So you would have to sort of experiment a little bit to try and find the right amount of filler, depending on also the type of e-liquid you're using. For example, if you're using like a really, really thick VG liquid, then you're probably going to want to put less Serra material in there to obviously aid the wicking. If you're using quite a thin sort of PG liquid, then you're probably going to want to put a little bit more in there to obviously try and prevent any flooding. But you know, for me here, it's working absolutely perfectly. In terms of setting it up, in the Genesis mode, it's pretty sort of nice and easy, nice and straightforward. You've got quite a bit of room to manoeuvre in there. The only thing I'm not too keen on is the way the top wire is connected. You have the two little sort of knurled nuts, and I don't like that method of sort of joining the top wire, because I find it's to start is a little bit fiddly, especially if you've got sort of big hands like myself. And also, as you tighten the top screw or the top nut down, then a lot of the time the bottom nut starts to sort of come unloose as well. So you have to sort of try and fiddle about a bit to get it a nice sort of tight connection. In the silica mode, again, it's sort of fairly sort of easy to use. You know, wrap your coils around the wick, just make sure that they're not sort of too far, not spaced too far apart. That's the phrase. And so it fits nicely into that little ceramic cup with one wire at the top and one wire at the bottom. And then because of the angle that the ceramic cup sort of fits in there, it should be nice and easy for you to attach the wires. And even though you are still using the little tiny nuts there to attach each end of the wire, it's a little bit easier because you've got like a solid post underneath it, rather than having sort of two nuts that are going to be sort of spinning around. So, no, setup wise, it's pretty easy really. In terms of the build quality, you know, it's a very nicely made atomizer. All the parts screwed together really nice and smoothly. The finish on it's a really nice sort of it's sort of like a matte sort of brushed finish. And if you have a matte Nemesis, then it really does sort of match it up sort of pretty much perfectly, really. I mean, I would say that the matte finish on the Nemesis is probably just a shade brighter. It's the only way I can sort of really describe it. You know, you have to sort of really study it. If you just look at it like that, it looks like it's like a hybrid basically. Only slight sort of criticism with the build quality is to do with that ceramic cup. Now, I've seen Grim Green's video, and on his one, the ceramic cup seemed to be a lot more sort of shaved on either side, so it was a lot easier to sort of fit in there. With my one, it seemed to only have a little bit sort of shaved off on either side, and so when you're trying to sort of fit it in, it was a little bit awkward. And that's why I have to put the two posts in first and then wedge the ceramic in there. Because if I put the ceramic in on first and then try and put the two posts, the actual ceramic cup is just slightly sitting over the edges of the holes, so it makes putting the screws through a little bit of a pain. So that's why I'm aiming to put the screws through first and then sort of wedge it into place. And because it's not quite shaved off enough, it's not sitting round at the angle that I'd like it to be. It needs to be a little bit more sort of spun round, just to make it a little bit easier to put your coil through nice and easy without sort of getting it what's the word, sort of not trapped, restricted, I suppose, because you want to make sure that it's not restricted. Otherwise, you know, the juice is going to trickle down the wicks, get to a certain point, it's just going to sort of collect there basically, rather than actually feed the heating coil. It's only a really sort of a little minor criticism. It's probably just something that they probably just missed during the old packaging it up and that. But other than that, no, build quality seems to be very good, really. The only thing I will say as well is it's a big old beast. I mean, like, I think I measured it, and it's roughly from the bottom to the top of the drip tip, I think it was around 85 millimeters or 8.5 centimeters. So it's a big old atomizer. Obviously, in the Genesis mode, you've got a 6mm tank there, which I would imagine even the most sort of hardcore of vapors, it's going to make you, you know, it's going to last you almost a full day, I would have thought, if you're really sort of caning it. You know, for me, it's going to last me a full day nice and easily. In the silica mode, obviously, it's a 3mm tank because a lot of it is taken up with the like the 7 material. But for me personally, I prefer the sort of shorter, stubbier sort of atomizers rather than the longer ones. But again, where it's a nice 22mm diameter, it does tie in very nicely with things like the Nemesis, gives it a nice sort of symmetrical sort of hybrid look. There's not a great deal else I can really tell you about it. You know, if you fancy trying one out for yourself, go along to www.vapors-shop. It is vapors-shop, isn't it? vapors-shop.net. Thank you very much for watching. Also, come along and visit my website at www.e-cig-reviews.com. That's e-cig-reviews.com. Cheers, guys. Happy vaping. See you later.